A couple of weeks ago, I was at the airport. I noticed people standing on the moving walkway. The doors open themselves. Even when you go to the bathroom, you don't have to turn a faucet. Everything is done automatically. And it made me realize that as a society, we're being killed by our labor-saving devices. That's going to be the topic today. Welcome to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, where our goal is to keep you informed, inspired, and a little entertained on all things diabetes. The information contained in this program is based on the experience and opinions of the Integrated Diabetes Services clinical team. Please discuss any changes to your treatment plan with your personal healthcare provider before implementing. I'm Gary Scheiner, owner and clinical director of Integrated Diabetes Services. Welcome you to this episode of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, where we're going to be discussing how to add activity into your day. And I'm delighted to be joined by my lovely and extremely talented co-host, Dr. Paula Diab. Paula is a physician and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She runs a primary care clinic in South Africa, and we're lucky to have her serve as our weight management specialist at Integrated Diabetes Services. So welcome, Paula. You want to share anything
Thank you.
else about yourself with the crew?
Well, I could say that I'm a talented baseball player or a talented swimmer, but that would be lying.
Do they even play baseball in South Africa? Cricket, I
No,
thought was
we play cricket.
the. So let me ask you something. If you couldn't be a physician and a diabetes educator, what would you do? What would you choose as your occupation?
I wanted to be an architect, actually. But
Seriously?
yeah, you had to have an art portfolio at school, and I didn't do art. And I'm actually not really good at drawing, but I like interior design and drawing on the computer and manipulating things on the computer. So I think if I was still at school now, I'd probably pursue a career in that direction. Thankfully, I landed up in medicine.
Architecture. Well, you could be like George Costanza on Seinfeld and just pretend you're an architect to try to impress people.
Well, today I'll pretend I'm a team athlete.
All right, a cricket player. I mean, if I had to do something other than what I do in caring for people with diabetes, I would create an entirely new occupation called Laziness Cop, where I would just be roaming the streets looking for people who are just blatantly avoiding being physically active and issue them citations, maybe a little education. So
I
many
think
of
you'd be
the
good at that,
problems in
actually.
this world, especially health issues that we have, are just related to people not being physically active in opportunities where they could be. A lot of people think, well, you got to work up a sweat. You get no pain, no gain, that kind of thing. I think you got to be
Mhm.
exercising really hard to gain any kind of benefit. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that that is the narrative that people think, but I think it's completely false. And I like the way that you sort of framed the title of this podcast, adding activity into your daily life. And I think there's a big difference between activity and exercise. People often think about exercise as formal, you have to go and play baseball, or you have to go and play basketball, or you have to go for a run or gym or something like that. Whereas activity is something completely different. Activity is taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It's taking a walk and going to go and get a coffee and walking with your friends while you're drinking the coffee instead of sitting down and drinking the coffee. That's activity. And I think that that's the type of thing that is most useful to us if we're trying to lose weight, regulate your diabetes, stay fit, be healthy, any of those objectives.
I always laugh at people who are waiting for parking spots at a store or a building. I'll park anywhere. I'll park as far as need be. And I see people just kind of surfing around like sharks, waiting for a close spot to open up. I even see this at the gym. It blows my mind. People go to the gym to work out, but they'll delay their workout so they can get a closer parking spot to
Yep.
save themselves 20 extra steps. And the funny thing is, if it's someplace like a coffee shop, by the time they get their spot and I parked far away, I've already walked in, got my coffee, and I'm heading back out, and they're just walking into the place. Go figure.
Yep.
You
People are
mentioned
funny characters.
physical activity being
a different concept than just exercise. What are the
Yep.
differences? What are some of the actual differences between the two?
So, I mean, I think exercise, traditionally, we think of as a more formal type of exercise. You're going to put on your gym outfits, you're going to put on a pair of sneakers, you're going to, you know, join a team. It's a lot more formal, whereas activity is just being active during the day. Uh, and I think what's happened is a lot of us have taken up jobs that are more sedentary. And so we are not active during the day at all. If you think even one generation ago, people were a lot more active in their jobs. It was a lot more manual labor. It was a lot more physical labor. And so I think we've moved away from that, unfortunately.
Yeah, you never see images of cavemen and Native Americans, indigenous peoples. You never see pictures of them obese
Mm.
just sitting around the campfire, do you? They all look like they're in pretty good shape. They didn't have gyms to go to. They didn't have treadmills. And I don't
And
think they played cricket or baseball back then. But their lives were hunting and gathering and building and probably warding off violent attacks from animals and from neighboring tribes, etc.
thankfully, we've moved on from there.
Well, there's still some infighting between neighboring tribes, but won't go
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I mean, lifestyles have changed. You're right.
Yeah.
We're sedentary more often than not. We spend so much time sitting. If it's not at work in front of a computer screen, it's at home in front of the TV or on the computer again, or in the car just sitting there. So much sitting that takes place.
And I think people also feel like you have to slot in time for exercise. You can't do exercise during your normal day. And there's so many demands on our time already that people just think, well, I can't do that. So therefore, I'm not going to do any of it. So hopefully we can encourage folk to find some time and slot it into their day,
Is there a
incorporate.
cumulative effect through the course of the day, doing a few moments of movement here and there and throughout the day? Does that add up to
Yeah,
equal
I
a quote
mean,
unquote
anything is helpful. Obviously, if you want to lose a significant amount of weight, you want to do an extended period of exercise to get into that fat burning exercise. But if you work on the fifth story of a building and you take the stairs up and down to lunch, up and down for a meeting, that's going to be far more effective than if you take the lift and then into elevator and then at the end of the day to try and go to gym for half an hour, walk on the
Yeah,
treadmill. It's going to add up.
I think of it as it's an attitude of I'm not gonna be a sedentary person. I'm gonna be an
Yeah.
active person. It's gonna make me feel better. I'm going to be in better shape, better condition, and it's going to help. Are there health benefits of these little mini snippets of physical movement throughout the day? Are there
Yeah,
tangible
absolutely.
benefits?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you've been sitting on your chair for an hour, just to stand up and do some squats or do some lunges, or if you've got the ability to do some sit ups or some planks or something like that every hour, that's hugely helpful just to get your heart rate up. If you on a phone call, just stand up and talk while you're on the telephone. If you have the ability to have a treadmill at work under your desk, anyone who's joined our IDS staff meetings, you see all these heads bopping all the time because they're on the treadmill underneath. If it's practical and available, absolutely, there's huge benefit in doing things like that.
Yeah, and it's low cost. Like you said, you don't need any special equipment. This is just in the course of your usual day's activities, just
Yep.
moving more,
Yep.
looking for opportunities. It's convenient. You don't have to block time aside for it. It just can happen spontaneously and naturally. And it's easy. It's not uncomfortable. It doesn't
Mm.
hurt. It shouldn't hurt. So what are some ways of tracking how much movement that you get through the course of the day? I mean, are pedometers things that people can use to track
So a
their
lot of
daily
people are now
movements?
wearing these watches and even our cell phones. You've got Apple Health on the phone that they have fairly accurate trackers that can track your movements, and you can start exercise regimes, and you can say I'm walking, I'm running, I'm cycling, and you can and track it like that. And it's quite nice to see, and I think it motivates a lot of people to actually achieve their goals. I know some of our medical insurances here in South Africa actually motivate people by a point system to collect so many points for the exercise, and then you get certain benefits on your health insurance. And that works really well because people are motivated to do it. I've had patients coming to see me, and then halfway through the consult, they suddenly stand up and shake their arms and their legs. What are you doing? My watch has just reminded me I need to stand for a little bit. And that can be hugely helpful.
Sure. I'm not surprised that insurance companies support physical activity, because it can have a profound effect on our health outcomes in terms of reducing obesity, reducing the risk for type 2 diabetes, reducing heart disease risk, helps to improve cholesterol levels, blood pressure. Now, the list goes on and on. But from a diabetes standpoint, a lot of our listeners have type 1 diabetes and take insulin multiple times a day. What kind of effect do these little mini periods of movement, what effect do those tend to have on a person's blood sugar level?
So I think to answer the question, a lot of it depends on the timing of that exercise. So for example, if you had to go and do a little bit of exercise in the morning, that's probably when your blood sugar levels are the most stable. So you're going to have a much lower risk of hypoglycemia. And it's a good way to set the tone for your diabetes as well as just for your general health for the day. If you're going to go and do a little bit of exercise after eating, that might have a significant effect on your postprandial spikes.
I've seen that myself. I discovered that if I do the dishes, I clean the table and do the dishes after dinner, my blood sugar after dinner is much
Yep.
more stable than if I plop down in front of the TV or on the sofa. My wife got wind of that, and she now makes me do the dishes every night for quote unquote health reasons.
But anything like that, pack away the laundry, any sort of household chore
Yeah.
that you can get in after dinner is very,
Yeah.
very helpful.
So many people try to get others to do their work
Mhm.
for them.
Mhm.
Their housework, their yard work, their shopping. And these are opportunities that they're
Yep.
missing to get some physical activity, not realizing that it is helping them. It's burning calories. It helps improve functional abilities, strength, flexibility, stamina. It's helping in all these ways. Just getting these little mini bits of activity throughout the day. From what
What
I've
I
seen from a
find
blood sugar standpoint is really short bouts don't tend to affect the blood sugar very much. And in fact, if there's a lot of exertion, even for a short period of time, the blood sugar doesn't tend to go down because we make some adrenaline at the same time, like walking up a flight of steps. There's a little bit of exertion, but it's, maybe 10 to 20 seconds. And the blood sugar is not usually going to change from something like that. You have to get into a longer bout of activity that's lasting 10, 20, 30 minutes to see a noticeable decline in the glucose
Yep.
level. So I tell people, don't worry so much about that. However, when you start becoming more habitually active throughout the day, then you may start to see an improvement in your insulin sensitivity. And
Yep.
that may require some adjustments to your basal insulin so that your glucose does hold steadier throughout the day and doesn't drop between meals and overnight.
I was actually chatting to a lady earlier this week, for people who are very concerned about their sugars dropping low during exercise. It's quite nice to say to them, just instead of thinking of going for an hour and a half walk, just start off with 20 minutes. And that's probably not going to drop them too much. And just start with that and then build it up from there and get that confidence back to actually start doing a bit more activity because she
Yeah.
was very concerned that she's having hypos all the time when she exercises.
Yeah. And even doing a single minute of walking multiple times a day is still
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah.
It's healthier than not doing any of that walking.
Yeah.
So you can always start with short bouts and build up. There's an article that we're posting in the show notes that we put together. And this is based on something that was in a diabetes management magazine decades ago. And what it does is it lists common daily activities and how they correspond in terms of energy expenditure with workouts. So, for example, walking at a pace of about 3 miles per hour, which is about 5 kilometers per hour,
Mhm.
you burn the same calories per minute as taking care of children, just playing with kids,
If you've ever
doing
looked after a
grocery.
2-year-old, you know that.
It could be a lot more than that. It's the same energy as going grocery shopping and pushing a cart up and down the aisles. It's the same as general house cleaning. Now, walking at a much faster pace, like 4 miles per hour, which would be what, about
Oh,
six and a
seven
half
Ks.
kilometers per hour,
Mm.
7. Yeah, that's the same as pushing a lawnmower. It doesn't
Mhm.
have, a motorized movement. Using a snowblower, it's the same as cleaning windows. It's the same as doing home remodeling where you're painting, wallpapering, things like that. So all these projects and repairs and maintenance around one's own home, you could be burning as many calories and
Yep.
providing the same fitness level as you would achieve plodding away on a treadmill.
So I think there's a few things I can pick up on there. The one is I often say to patients, be careful of grocery shopping, touring around, things like that. And the other one is golf. People always think,
Mhm.
oh, golf is not going to do anything because I'm just, walking around the golf course. But you're doing that for 5, 6, 7 hours, depending on how well you play golf. And that is just this constant activity. And often that can really drop your sugar levels. And the same with grocery shopping. People go to the mall and they go walking around the grocery store for a couple of hours in the morning, and then they're surprised that their sugars have dropped low halfway through the morning.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you're carrying the shopping bags or you're pushing a grocery cart around, you're constantly on your feet. It's
It's the
standing up,
same
sitting
as
down.
race walking. It's the same
No,
pace as race walking, doing those kind of
absolutely.
things.
And the other thing is people who often going overseas and they're going touring and they're leaving their hotel early in the morning and then they're going sightseeing all day. And you kind of forget how much exercise you're doing that, because that's also completely different from
Sure.
your everyday activity. So very
Now,
often, it's good to just pre-warn people about those sorts of activities.
okay, now on the chart, it says that jogging or running at about 6.5 miles per hour. Now that's what, like an 8.5 minute
Yeah,
mile. That's a pretty good pace. That's
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 good.
a runner's pace. You burn the same energy as shoveling snow, burn the same energy as using a manual lawnmower, installing roof tiles, splitting wood, moving furniture,
I think I'd
aerobic
rather go for a run.
dance. Now, dance is people underestimate the benefits of dance. Dance
Mhm,
it burns a lot of energy, it's cardiovascular, and all you need is some music. You don't need much more
mhm.
than that, a little bit of space to move around. So that's a great form of physical
I
activity
actually
as
heard a
well.
friend of mine said off when she's making dinner in the evenings, she and her children dance in the kitchen while she's making dinner. And I thought that's such a
Yeah.
clever idea.
Yeah,
You
I
were
did
talking
that
earlier. You were
when my
talking
kids
earlier
were
about
little. Yeah, when my kids were little and I could still pick them up and lift them. When I couldn't get to the gym, we would have what we called a dance party at night.
uh-huh,
And I had a disco strobe light I would put on, and I would get out my old like 50s and 60s music, and we would play that, and I would throw them around and swing them, and they would
uh-huh.
jump on me and climb. Oh my God, I was so tired after like
Yeah.
45 minutes of doing that. That was my workout. So then again,
Mm.
that's not a minute here and there. That was enough
20 minutes.
energy. I
Yep.
might as well have been running at an 8-minute mile.
So I
That's a
often say
serious
that to
workout.
people who've got young children, because I think trying to find time in your day to go to the gym or to go for a walk or something like that when you've got young children is really challenging. But
Mhm.
if while your child's busy playing puzzles and Legos on the floor in the lounge, if you can put on a yoga or Pilates video and do it with them, very often I've seen people, well, I've heard people, the child actually starts doing it with them also, and the child's also got their legs in the air and doing all sorts of funny positions and things. But if you can incorporate it like that, instead of just sitting on the floor and observing them, actually do something with them. And that makes a huge
Yeah.
difference as well. You're not finding
How do
extra
you
time.
feel about just stretching out,
Stretching is
upper
amazing.
body, lower body?
Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, is brought to you by Integrated Diabetes Services, where experience meets expertise, passion meets compassion, and diabetes care is personal because we live it too. Our team of clinicians, all living with type 1 diabetes, understands the challenges firsthand. We're here to help no matter where you are in the world. From glucose management to self-care strategies, the latest tech, sports and exercise, weight loss, type 1 pregnancy, and emotional well-being, we've got you covered. We offer consultations in English and Spanish via phone, video chat, email, and text. Want to learn more? Visit integrateddiabetes.com or email info@integrateddiabetes.com to schedule a consultation.
Stretching's amazing. And as I've got closer and closer to 50, I've realized how important it is also. because you get out of bed in the mornings and those muscles that used to just spring out of bed suddenly they're not springing out of bed so well anymore. And the nice thing there is that if you're going to do some sort of stretching or Pilates or yoga, you don't have to put on a special outfit. You don't have to go anywhere. You can literally lie on your bedroom floor and do it for 10 minutes before you even get up and get dressed for the morning. And hugely beneficial, especially for your core muscles and basic fitness and strength.
What are some things that you do personally to be physically, just to be active? Not to get a full bore workout, but just to be an active person. What do you do?
So I've started doing Pilates. Well, when I say I started, maybe 5 years ago, as I started getting closer and closer to 50, out of necessity than anything else. And that's really nice because it just, you feel good when you wake up in the morning if you can do a bit of stretching. I really enjoy going for walks with friends. And so once a week I get together with a small group of friends and we go for a walk. And I actually look forward to just chatting with them and keeping up with them. And I think that's another part of activity and exercise. If you can make it social rather than just going and running on the treadmill at the gym, that's hugely beneficial because when you don't really want to do the exercise, you want to see your friends and have an accountability partner. So I enjoy that. You got park runs in the States. So those are also wonderful events because you also get to meet other people in your area. And so we try and do park runs. We live not too far away from the beach. So sometimes going for an evening beach walk or early morning beach walk over weekends is really nice. And then during the summer, it's quite nice to go water skiing, although I'm enjoying watching and taking photographs of my children water skiing these days. But every now and again, I do get behind the boat and go and see if I can still do the tricks that I used to do when I was 20. But yeah, I mean, I don't enjoy any team sports. I don't do any team sports or team exercises. I don't enjoy going to gym. I just don't really have time to do it. So yeah, I just have to fit things into my weekly routine.
Great. It's crazy. I make it a policy to never take elevators or escalators unless it's more than 4 flights. I mean, that works for me. If it's 5 flights or more, yeah, I'll take the elevator or escalator. Otherwise, I just don't do it. If it's a couple of flights, I'll find the stairs and I'll use those. And sometimes I have to tell my wife, all right, I'll meet you up there because she's going to take the elevator or the escalator.
Should take her
I
with.
usually get there. Well, I usually get there she just had a knee op, she had knee replacement. It's a little hard for her to take the steps right now. Hoping at some point she'll do that with me. But I usually get there before she does. And it's a rule I have for myself. I just won't take escalators and elevators unless it's a really long trip. I also do all of my own yard work. I mean, I live in a suburban neighborhood where most people, they pay a company to come in and do all their yard work for them. I don't. Everything, the landscaping, the mowing, the edging, I do it all myself. It takes a little bit of time on the weekends, but I get that activity that way. Now, so when I do construction projects and minor building projects around my home, I try to use hand tools. I get away from using electric and power tools. So I've got a manual drill. I've got a hand saws that I use. Do my own screwdrivering and things like that. So I'm getting that upper body workout when I'm doing those kind of things. I built an entire enclosed deck on the back of my house just using hand tools. And it was so satisfying because it took several summers to do this. But just using the hand tools, little by little, I was able to get the job done. And it was so
Sometimes even just
satisfying.
holding something above your head is quite hard work also.
It is. It really
You're
is.
just holding up something for someone doing DIY.
Especially the roof and the support components. Occasionally, I had to get a little bit of help with some of those, but just using hand tools. Around the house, I try to, clean things up on my own. When there's projects like the windows and the floors, I do those myself. I like getting the activity. And those are the kind of things that keep me active. And I'm at an airport. If I'm on a moving walkway, I'm walking. It bugs me to no end when people are standing.
People are standing.
They're moving at this slow pace, just standing there. And I just fly by them, walking by. And if I nudge them a little bit just to maybe get them moving, I'll do that. But I don't know. That's the ultimate laziness. If I'm a laziness cop, I'm writing them a citation for doing that sort of.
The other thing that's really nice is if you go for an early morning walk in the mornings, obviously you have to wake up a little bit earlier. You put your earphones in and you can listen to a podcast or listen to some sort of nice music or a meditation or something like that. And it actually really just sets the tone for the day quite nicely.
I love that idea.
I
That's
know
a nice way to
recently
start the day.
it was wonderful. My daughter was doing for her school, they had to do an 80-kilometer walk. So I think that's 50 miles. And so they could choose between 55 or 80 kilometers. So I think it's 30 or 50 miles that they could do. And she wanted to do the 30 miles. And so every morning we would go for about just over an hour walk. And it was lovely. It was often still dark in the morning when we went. But I'd put my earphones on because you can't talk to a teenager at 5 o'clock in the morning. They don't talk.
5 o'clock, try 8 o'clock.
So the two of us would go with our headphones. She would go with her music, and I listened to sort of a meditation or a podcast or something I wanted to listen to. And yeah, it was really nice. And you sort of get back home, and you're like, right, we can start the day now. I want it.
Great. I love that. I feel that being an active person is a mindset. Putting it in your head and telling yourself and buying into the fact that you are an active person and you're going to look for opportunities to be active, that being inactive is not who you are. That's for
Mhm.
the people who are being either lazy or just not don't really care about their health and well-being. I'm not that kind of person. I had diabetes thrust upon me at a young age, and I'm going to do all I can to overcome that. And part of that is just that attitude of I'm going to be an active person. And
Yeah.
yeah, I work out regularly. Do get those exercise sessions in, but beyond that, throughout the day, I look for opportunities to be active, to use my body, to use my muscles, and it's a mindset. I think it's an important
Absolutely.
mindset.
And I think, for a lot of people with diabetes, there's so many complexities in terms of how do I manage my diabetes and exercise. And absolutely it is very complex. But if you just start with the basics and just be a little bit more active than you were yesterday and aim to be a little bit more active tomorrow, you can just slowly build up the confidence that you need, slowly start checking what happens if I exercise after a meal, what happens if I exercise before a meal, and gain that confidence so that you can be more active. And the same way for people who want to lose weight, very often people say if they're very obese, they say, I can't lose weight. I can't run. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, find something you can do. Can you stand up and can you do knee lifts and calf raises while you're watching TV? Can you walk on the treadmill while you're watching your favorite series? Just things like that that's going to make you a little bit more active. And then as you start losing the weight, then you can start doing more formal exercise like swimming or walking or something like that. But it's
Do
a
you have a
very nice
oh,
entrance into just getting a bit more active.
do you have a favorite series?
Not at the moment. So I'm struggling to find one. So if you can recommend one, I'm happy.
You have Netflix?
I do.
I just got into Stranger Things. I know it's more of
Okay.
a kid or a young people oriented show. I'm
Yeah.
loving it. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
What I do is once a week, I go to the gym. I use an elliptical, take that thing,
Yeah.
crank that way up. And I only watch the show when I'm working out at the gym. So I'm looking forward to my workouts because I get the next episode of
But the nice
Stranger.
thing with exercising when you're watching a series is that it kind of forces you to continue exercising because you don't want to just stand on the treadmill and stare at the TV or sit on the bike and stare at the TV. So
Yeah, I'm
until the series
engaged.
is finished, it forces you to carry on
The time flies by. It really
and you
does.
don't think about it.
Yeah. Speaking of time flying by, I think we're coming up on our time here. But if you have just a quick take home message for everybody who's listening, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's not to strive for perfection and just to get into being more active. Do more than what you did yesterday. Form a habit. Just try and do something rather than nothing and start where you are. It doesn't have to be big. You don't need an outfit change. You don't need a fancy gym contract or anything to start. All the little bits and pieces that we've been talking about. Wake up in the morning, do a bit of Pilates while you're watching TV, sit on the elliptical back, fold away the laundry or wash the dishes after dinner. All those little things that just start adding up and then it can give you the confidence to then start doing more formal exercise. Make it enjoyable, make it meaningful, make it sociable. Yeah. And I think just make movement part of your everyday.
I love it, Paula. Yeah. I'm not saying we should force people to pay a quarter to use the escalator, but labor saving devices are not doing us any favors. We need to all develop more of an attitude that we are active people. Look for opportunities to be active, walking, dancing, Pilates, stretching, yard work, housework. There's all kinds of opportunities to be physically
Mhm.
active and and we can accomplish things at the same time. We can
Yeah.
have a cleaner home, more beautiful yard, etc. and be more fit and active and healthy people along
Yeah,
the way.
it's
All right.
absolutely
So,
a mindset change.
all right. So I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Paula for being my guest today, and remind everybody to keep thinking like a pancreas.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. On behalf of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, I'm Gary Scheiner, wishing you a fantastic week ahead. And don't forget to think like a pancreas.